I will tell you something that occurred to me about 5 years ago. I am from the city of Mexicali, and I am going to work in Tecate, Tijuana, Ensenada, and several places in the region. It was a Friday morning. I left Tijuana to come to Mexicali, and the noise was already coming down. Specifically, a place called La Herradura Vieja. People who know will know the place well. I was driving and listening to music, when suddenly, a man made me stop. That made me wonder about the time and place. Anyway, I stopped and asked him where he was going, to which he said, "There, to La Progreso." Then I told him to go up. We were talking, a very nice and very funny man came to me. When I got to the Sentinel, it was weird for me to comment. I would have stayed here, but no. The family does what they want with one. Which I did not understand, and I did not answer. When I got to La Progreso, I told him that my wife had a land there, and that for several years we lived in that place. Then I asked him where he was going, since I could leave him near his house. But he told me, "Leave me here, in the canal, I will get home. My daughter and my wife are waiting for me." Then I stopped and said, "Take care, sir. God bless you." To which he answered, "Thank you very much. It's been a while since I wanted to get there, and no one picked me up." I left him there, and when I got home, I told my wife about that nice man and where I had picked him up. I described him to her. And she suddenly turned and I was left seeing with a face of amazement. Then he asked me how he was dressed, to which I told him that he was wearing pants, Levi's work boots and a shirt from the Duck Lucas. Then she asked me if he was wearing his white cap, to which I said with amazement, "And how do you know that?" Then she started crying and told me, "It was my father. You saw my father, he died in that place in the year 1997. He was a trailer." They told him the Chuchis, to which I said, "No, that is not possible." She stayed crying all that day, which made us return together to that place to bring flowers and candles to his father. On January 2, 2021, I left Mochilero for Tijuana. On the subject of the reviews of the retains, I started to go up La Rumorosa at about 12 at night. I arrived in about 20 minutes to the Cobra, and from there, I took the free road to Tijuana. Without news, I crossed the town of La Rumorosa. For that, it was like 1 in the morning. La carretera estaba totalmente solitaria, cuando en eso, al llegar a la cima de una subida, yo traía las luces altas de mi carro, y alcancé a ver, como a unos 100 metros, había un canido. No era un perro o un lobo, menos un puma. Aquello era más grande, como de más de un metro de alto, y casi 2 de largo. Era de color café. Medio peludo y cuando lo vi aquella cosa de una zancada cruzó por la carretera parándose al costado izquierdo. I slowed down a little, and as I passed next to him, I turned and we both looked at each other in those seconds. I noticed a pair of red eyes and pointed ears, but I wasn't scared. I just wondered what kind of animal it was. Until now, I gave myself the task of looking for images, and the most attached. It has been the image of a whale. Well, that is my story of La Rumorosa. I'm from Mexicali. I've traveled countless times by the rumor. Until now, I had never seen anything on the road while I was driving around there. But it's been like 8 years. My father-in-law, who liked hiking, invited my wife and me to go with him. We would also go with my brother-in-law and his wife. As we climbed the noisy road walking down the duct, on that occasion, we started the walk through the military shelter to go in through the canyon. It was like 6 in the morning, but in the section of the stream, which would be like 3 or 5 kilometers, I don't know for sure, we heard that they were shouting at us. It was heard as if they were heading towards us at that moment. I just thought if I was going to be able to hold up, climb the slope. And I couldn't understand what the screams were saying. But we also noticed that it seemed like they were laughing. When we turned to see who they were, there was no one. Only the cars that passed higher up the road were heard. But they were voices like men, and they were heard very close to us. But we never saw anyone else in all that drama. That was my experience. My dad was a trailer driver, and he told us that one day he got off at the salt water to do his business. Once he finished, and when he was about to get on the truck, something pulled him. He wanted to get on again, but again someone pulled him. He also told us that one day, driving in the noisy, he looked at a man flying. He said he looked like Jesus from the movies, and he flew straight at him, and then he just disappeared. Also, when he stopped to rest, he looked at the car lights coming from afar, approaching. But who never reached him for 30 years. He was a gorilla, and until he died he always told us stories of that place of the Rumorosa, because the truth is that I do believe in these stories of the Rumorosa. Once, with my dad, we were traveling in his trailer. We left Guatabampo, Sonora, and we were going to Tijuana. Already leaving Mexicali, we were going to cross La Rumorosa. It was already past 3 in the morning. And in that we were going in a curve. I don't remember what section it was. But in the curve, we looked at a woman as if asking for a fan. But the weird thing, it was a woman in a nurse's suit. I told my dad, "Dad, look. A woman. I think she's asking for a ride." And in that, he looks at me. And he says to me, "Close your eyes, son. She's not a woman. It's an apparition." I felt that something, I don't know. I felt that my body was paralyzed and that I was going to faint. But the excitement for seeing that ghost woman was stronger than when I passed by the side where I was standing. I looked at her, but she disappeared out of the blue. I felt a very ugly fear that even made me cry. And when everything happened, my dad told me that that woman, a few years ago, some men had abused her and took her life, leaving her body lying there in the rumor. I just wanted to share with you this little experience that I don't want to happen again. My grandfather told us that, on one occasion, he was in his pickup truck with 5 people, 2 in front and 3 in the back, and that just passing through that section, passing through the noisy one, he tells us that at one point, those who were behind him told him to speed up, to step on the bottom. My grandfather, when he saw through the rearview mirror, he noticed that a tall being, of a color between white and gray, he ran at a great speed behind them. My grandfather had already heard stories of beings like that, so he only kept his speed and told everyone not to get lost, that everything was going to be fine. He says that after reaching them, that being jumped and surpassed the pickup. After that, he fell to a few meters and continued running. He says he was seen jumping again and climbing a hill. He told us that everyone got sick from the fright. My grandfather lived a large part of his life in the Cerro de Tecate, and he knew the rumor very well. He told us everything he saw, what he heard, and what he felt. And he said that when he passed by, he was never alone. I had passed there by the rumor, but already going up, I saw a child who hit me. His skin was grayish, he was crouched, like hiding from something, under the bench of one of the watchers. The strange thing was his clothes. It was like the 1950s. He wore short pants and a short-sleeve shirt, and he had stripes. But the most shocking thing was his look. His eyes were very deep black, large and round. He looked at me fixedly, just like I did to him. Eso mientras iba subiendo era como si se hubiera detenido el tiempo o avanzara muy lento, and there it was, until I lost sight of it. But the thing didn't end there, because at about 200 meters, I ran into a woman. But she was wearing an almost white dress, with an old and worn tone. I noticed that she had her arms extended up, while she was a few centimeters from the ground. And the wind moved her dress. And between the wind, I could hear him screaming. That was a cloudy day, but there was still a little light. In those days, it got darker later. This was a few years ago, while we were driving back by the Rumorosa. But it's clear that the weather plays a very important role in the place. It's as if it awakens some event from the past. I have something to tell. 17 years ago, I left Tijuana, heading to Mexicali. I was with an older brother, my other brother in Mexicali, who had suffered a spill. When we were going down La Rumorosa, passing the military stop, a few kilometers ahead we saw a man who was at the foot of the road. He was already a big man. He was thin, with khaki-colored clothes. That man made signs for me for a ride, so I stopped and went up to the back. I asked him where he was going, and he told me that he was going down later. That caught my attention. Well, when we went talking, he told me that he lived behind where he had picked him up, and there was only a hill that was completely in the desert. There was no house. Anyway, I thought that maybe there were some little farms or houses behind. After a while he told me, "Come on, I'm going to see if they buy me some chivas." And he went down to an abandoned restaurant that used to work, but not anymore. It was pure desert. There was no house around. When that man went down, I turned around, but he was gone. I never saw him cross the road. He was nowhere to be found. He had simply disappeared. On one occasion, I came from Mexicali to Tijuana at night. I had gone for a walk and to eat at Mexicali. There are some places where there are rest areas, and I stopped there to do my necessities because I couldn't take it anymore. So I got out of the car. I felt a climate between hot and cold air, and the wind was super strong. When in the distance, I looked up at one of the stones. There was the figure of a person. When I got careless to grab water and wash my hands, I turned back to where I had seen that person, and I could notice that several people were crossing the road and coming towards me. As soon as I could, I got on my car, super scared. The guy the first saw were dressed in loose clothes, like a Satan, and I could see them through the rearview mirror. How she was laughing. I left as fast as I could. And since that occasion, I don't like to stop or go up that road at night. That left me very scared and marked. Never stop there at night. The last time I visited La Rumorosa, something strange happened. That place is a kind of impressive canyon. I remember that the first time we passed that road, to all of us who were in the car when we saw such an impressive place, it gave us an incredible collective feeling, something strange. But the truly strange thing was this last time. Me and my son climbed to the highest peak. When we arrived, it was very strange, because it is an almost unexplored place, where there are very strange rocks, with unnatural shapes, since they have very exact cuts, something inexplicable. In addition to many stories, it is a very mysterious place. Returning to the subject, when we climbed the rocky peak, it was very rare. When we started recording and exploring, we heard a buzz, as if a motor had turned on. My son quickly said to me, "Dad, it looks like there's an invisible plane." Where does that noise come from? The truth was that I couldn't tell him anything. And soon he started feeling bad, with nausea. And soon I did too. I should mention that from below the place it looks like a peak, but once you're up, exactly on the opposite side of the one you climb, it's a kind of giant garden, very strange. There's an inexplicable vibration, something illogical for a place in the shape of peaks. My son and I decided to go down immediately. We never tell this. It's a secret that I think we'll never tell. I live in Tecate. I often travel to Mexicali, to La Rumorosa, to eat in the winter and things like that. At one point, I was coming from Mexicali at around 1 a.m. with a friend, heading to Tecate, and just as I was on my way up, halfway through La Rumorosa, all of a sudden, the car went out. With the speed it was driving, I managed to park on the edge of the slow lane. The night was dark. There was no moon. A couple of cars passed by, to which we asked for help, but none stopped. I panicked and checked the battery cables in the car. And everything was fine. The car had not been overheated. In addition to that, my phone had no signal. And suddenly, we heard a chilling laugh. Raphael, my friend, ran up the hill. And I got in the car and started to pray with tremendous fear. I kept hitting the car key, and then it went out. Suddenly, it turned on again. That didn't go well. I put the gear in and started as fast as I could, waiting to see my friend. And a kilometer ahead, I saw him. He was on his knees. So I yelled at him so we could go. When he turned to see me, I saw that he was crying. With a gloomy face. Nivian saw me and he ran up to the car. And I left as fast as I could from there, already in the car. I looked at his face and he was pale. Also, he didn't stop crying or praying. And then he told me that when we heard that laugh, he ran away. But no matter how fast he ran, someone was following him, telling him not to leave him there, and for a moment he laughed. He ran until he could no longer, and it was in that place where I found him. He told me that he stopped listening to that voice and laughter when he began to pray. That was our experience, going through the noisy,